Welcome to this lecture on evaluation of the hypothalamo-pituitary-adrenal cortex function. This is going to be a broad overview and I'll be covering two important topics. One would be dexamethasone suppression test and other one is cosintropin stimulation test. Now, before understanding what this test is actually testing, we need to understand how the human system is working. Whenever there is any stress, be it external or internal, be it emotional stress, be it fall of blood pressure, fall of blood glucose or anything, whenever there's an emotional stress, the hypothalamus detects it. Hypothalamus detects it and then stimulates a hormone called corticotropin releasing hormone. The corticotropin releasing hormone then acts on the pituitary to produce a hormone ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. This adrenocorticotropic hormone then acts on the adrenal glands in the cortex region and results in the production of cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone and these levels increase in the presence of stress. Now this axis is very similar to how the TRH, TSH and FT3, FT4 levels of the body act. I have a video talking about how to interpret the level these three hormone levels, giving an example to the car, brake and the accelerator. Have a look at that video about interpreting a thyroid function before you go on further to this video. Now we have two conditions where of the adrenal cortex. One is Cushing syndrome, where there is excess production of cortisol, and these are the signs and symptoms that occur because cortisol production is high. We also have another condition, Addison's disease, where the adrenal cortex is not producing cortisol. Cortisol, as I told you, is a stress hormone which is used to prepare the body for any stressful situation. So both these conditions cause severe problems in life and need to be treated. So when you get a patient of Cushing syndrome and we're thinking of how we want to find out where the problem is and then start our treatment accordingly, we need to investigate the patient. The problem, we know that the cortisol levels are high, so the blood cortisol is being produced in excess. The question is this problem is this a problem of the pituitary? Is the pituitary producing a lot of excess ACTH which is causing the adrenal cortex to produce more and more hormones, or is it problem of the adrenal glands which is producing more and more of cortisol? To come to that diagnosis, we do what is the dexamethasone suppression test. The logic behind doing the dexamethasone suppression test is that when we give dexamethasone, this is very similar to cortisol. This is a steroid hormone. Dexamethasone acts on the hypothalamus, decreases this corticotropin releasing hormone, which acts on the pituitary and reduces the production of ACTH. So when we give dexamethasone, the corticotropin releasing hormone is decreased, as a result of which ACTH decreases, and this decreases the cortisol production from the adrenal glands. When we do this test, we check up the cortisol level and the ACTH level after giving dexamethasone. If the cortisol level decreases, then the problem is not with the adrenal cortex, but the problem is with the pituitary because it is producing excess of ACTH hormone, and the fact that when we give dexamethasone, the ACTH production is decreased indicates that it is responsive. This will be a secondary adrenal dysfunction. Now, pituitary tumors will show no effect when we give a low dose dexamethasone test. But if we increase the dose of dexamethasone, then the amount of ACTH being produced by the pituitary can decrease. So we have to do this dexamethasone suppression test in two ways, a low dose and a high dose. Now, if even after giving dexamethasone, the cortisol level of the adrenal glands does not decrease, then we know that the problem is not with the pituitary and the problem is with the adrenal glands. And to further substantiate this, if you check the ACTH levels at that time, you will find that the ACTH levels are low because it is the cortex, which is adrenal cortex, which is producing cortisol, and this high levels of cortisol in the blood will reflexively act on the pituitary and decrease the ACTH secretion through a feedback loop. So the question is, how do we do the dexamethasone suppression test? First, we have to prepare the patient adequately. Patient should not be in any stress. He should not be in any steroids. Oral contraceptive pills should not be there. Patient being admitted in the hospital is an example of a stress for the patient, so this should not be there. Treatment in drugs can affect if a patient is already on treatment with certain drugs like barbiturates, estrogen, corticosteroids, oral contraceptive pills, phenytoin, spironolactone, tetracycline. All these cross react with the test for estimating serum cortisol, and so these all should be avoided before doing the test, or if we cannot avoid them, we should interpret the result accordingly. Now, how is a test produced? I said there are two levels. First, on day one, you do a baseline cortisol level. This usually you collect a sample around 8 o'clock in the morning and see what is the baseline cortisol level. Then there are two types of tests. You do a low dose dexamethasone suppression test or a high dose dexamethasone suppression test. Now in a low dose dexamethasone suppression test, we give 1 milligram of dexamethasone. This is usually given in the night at 11 p.m. If we are doing a high dose dexamethasone suppression test, we do 8 milligrams of dexamethasone at 11 p.m. Then at 8 o'clock in the morning, we collect a sample from the patient for doing the estimation of ACTH and cortisol. After a low dose dexamethasone suppression test, you should find that the plasma cortisol level should be less than 5 microgram per deciliter. In high dose dexamethasone suppression, there should be a reduction of at least 50% of the baseline cortisol. Now, if this does not occur, then we know that the cortisol levels are not being suppressed by ACR by dexamethasone, and we can locate the cause of the problem. If the cortisol levels is low and the ACTH levels is low, then we know that by giving dexamethasone we suppress the ACTH and that brought the cortisol level low. That means it is a result of a pituitary disease. If on low dose dexamethasone suppression we do not see any change, but we give a high dose dexamethasone suppression and then we see that the cortisol levels are decreasing and the ACTH levels are slightly come down, we know that this is a pituitary tumor. When we give dexamethasone and still find that the cortisol levels do not decrease and the ACTH level still remains high, then we know that this is a primary adrenal cortex problem. This is an extract from the Harrison's textbook of medicine, which covers all what I have said. Now let's get down to Addison's disease. Addison's disease is a disease caused because of decreased production of cortisol. Cushing's disease was excess production of cortisol. Addison's disease is decreased production of cortisol. Here also the problem could be the same two things. Either there could be a problem with the pituitary, that it's not producing adequate amount of ACTH, or it could be a problem with the adrenal cortex which is not able to produce cortisol. Right. So how do we get down to doing to identifying the disease? We need to stimulate the adrenal cortex with ACTH and see whether the adrenal cortex can produce cortisol or not. Concentropin is an analog. It is something similar to ACTH, but it is slightly modified, so it's got all the activities of ACTH in terms of stimulating the cortex to release cortisol. I told you once again that the cortisol which is being produced by the adrenal cortex is a stress hormone. So if you can induce stress, then also we could have overcome this need of giving ACTH. How do you induce stress? It's a very simple but slightly risky procedure wherein you give insulin to the person. When you give insulin, the blood sugar will fall down and create hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is a big stress for the body, and the response of the body would be to increase the cortisol levels. So you can either give concentropin, or if you don't have concentropin, then you can use insulin induced hypoglycemia as a source for producing ACTH and seeing the response of adrenal cortex and the blood cortisol level. If the cortisol level increases, then the adrenal cortex is working fine. The problem is with the pituitary. If there is no change in the cortisol level, or if the rise of cortisol level is not as much as expected, then we call this a problem of the adrenal glands. Now, how do we prepare the patient? Now, patient has to be properly prepared before doing the test. We have to stop hormone replacement therapy or oral contraceptive pills for at least 6 weeks. Patient should not be on any steroids because we are estimating cortisol level, and all steroids will cross react with the test for cortisol estimation. If the person has to be on prednisolone or hydrocortisone, it is better to change it to dexamethasone, because dexamethasone does not interact with the test. The test is again done between 8 to 10 a.m. in the morning. Because we are giving something and seeing a stress response, the patient has to be kept for observation. The procedure: we take a basal sample two samples we take, one for serum cortisol, so this will be in the yellow vacutainer, and one for ACTH estimation, which will be in EDTA. This has to be kept chill and sent to the lab immediately for storage. You don't need to do the ACTH levels, but you need to send it to the lab immediately so that it can be kept in the cold chain. After that, we give cosentropin 250 micrograms IV, and the sample is collected. Two samples are collected, one at 30 minutes and the other at 60 minutes. Now, if one doesn't have cosentropin, we can go for the insulin induced hypoglycemia test. Here we give IV insulin and wait for the blood glucose level to fall down to around 40 milligram per deciliter. By this time, the patient will show all the signs of hypoglycemia in the form of cold sweats, chills, etc. Once we have induced the stress, that is the starting point, and then after 30 minutes and 60 minutes we can collect the blood glucose level. Once we've induced the stress, then you can give back glucose and ensure that the blood glucose levels comes back to normal and the patient doesn't have any symptoms. Okay, we just want to induce a stress, and that stress has been induced by creating a hypoglycemia. That stress would have stimulated the adrenal cortex to produce cortisol. Once we've induced the stress, then we should not keep the patient in the stress for a long time, because hypoglycemia can kill the patient. You have to treat that also. This is the challenge about doing this test. Now, what is the normal result? The normal result is that the cortisol levels should rise. An absolute level should be greater than 420 nanomoles per liter, and we've taken a baseline cortisol level at 0. After 1 hour, there should be at least 170 nanomoles per liter increase of cortisol. So if we find that at 1 hour sample the value is more than 420 nanomoles per liter, and the difference between the 0 and the 1 hour value is greater than 170 nanomoles per liter, then we say that the adrenal cortex is functioning all right. If there is a slight increase but not as per these definitions, that is, if there's no increase or there is a suboptimal increase, we know that the problem is with the adrenal cortex. If there is an increase in the cortisol level, the next thing we do is we check for the ACTH at the baseline and see what was the ACTH levels. If the ACTH level was low, but on giving stress to the patient the cortisol level increased, then we know that the person's adrenal cortex is okay, the response to ACTH is okay, but the serum ACTH level is low, indicates that the problem is with the pituitary. Thank you. This is taken from Harrison. I will be sending it to you in my PowerPoint presentation.